cried the sparrow.
You're listening to the Sailing into Oblivion podcast, where we sit down with everyday people who do extraordinary things. I'm your host, Jerome Rand.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are on a completely different coast today. We are in the great state of Florida, down here in Fort Pierce, ready and getting everything sorted for our departure tomorrow. I quite literally flew in this morning. I ended up getting delayed because of those massive storms and everything. No big deal. We did eventually make it. No cancellations. But I didn't get to the boat until about 3:30 this morning. And we had a lot of stuff we had to do. So after just a few hours of sleep, boom, back in action. And we're prepping. We've got tonight to sleep, and then tomorrow we venture east. And more precisely, east-northeast, about 875 miles from Fort Pierce, Florida. You're going to find the tiny little island of Bermuda. That's where we're headed. That's our first and only, hopefully, stop. Lay over there until we get a good weather window to head south, then west, and right back here. We're looking at about 2.5 to 3 weeks of beautiful offshore training, coaching, sailing, living the dream out there on this beautiful West Sail 32 Montana. Got to drop by Old Sparrow for a quick pickup of some gear, a little storm jib, a little Iridium Go backup, a couple bungees, things like that. Got to make sure we got everything we possibly could need. It's still pretty early to be venturing out deep into the Atlantic. We could see some pretty heavy weather out there. You never really know. But our window right now looks pretty darn good. Now, I've uploaded a couple of podcasts. Well, one podcast for later this week on Sunday. That one's going to drop. That one is with Elliott Smith. Super cool. If you're part of the Patreon family, you've already heard that one. A little early access action just for you guys. Thank you so much for your support. But yeah, that one's coming soon. But I figured, I've been talking about this one, and I've been going through the outline and all that sort of stuff, and I'm just going to pull the trigger on it. And this podcast is all about getting back up. You know, you get knocked down in life, and what really counts is how we get back up on our feet, back up on the horse, back up out at sea. You know, it's kind of one of those things as a solo sailor, you know, we have to be in control mentally out there. And it's not the easiest thing to do, but I do have quite a bit of time out there, and I've gone through the ups and downs from nature and from other things, i.e. getting turned upside down in the Atlantic, all that sort of stuff, total failures, and then trying to get back up. And I am only saying that because I like to study it. I like to try and figure out, poke and prod into my brain and see what helps and why I start to feel better and what that might be. So, maybe caveat here, I am not a scientist or doctor or psychologist or anything like that, formally trained by any means. So all of this, I don't know. I don't want to call it advice, but what I'm about to go through about getting back up and, getting out of the rut, all that sort of stuff, whatever you want to call it, is my own experience of not only falling down and finding myself there, but also getting out of it and turning it around and turning it on its head and kind of getting back to the place that I want to be, that we all want to be, enjoying life, happy, excited, energized, all that sort of stuff. And I don't know, maybe some of this will sort of resonate. Maybe one or two things might be helpful to try, that sort of thing. Obviously, mental health is kind of it's a complicated subject for sure, and it's something for sure. I don't know. If there's one thing I do know is that when you're not having an easy time or an easy go of things, no matter what the circumstances, one thing that definitely always seems to help is when you talk to other people and you seek out help. So That being said, I still have to do the old promo, but I'm going to make it really short. If you want to help support this podcast, check out all the links in the description. There's a million different ways that you can keep this thing going. You'll find them all there. So just go and look at that, and really, really appreciate all the continued support, because, when I see stuff come in, whether it's orders for merch or it's one-time donations or it's new members on the Patreon or, even some of the stuff off the wish list, it's really that makes me want to just sit down and go harder and try and produce better podcasts and more content on the other platforms for everybody to hopefully share with and learn from some of these experiences that I have. Boom. All right, done. So I want to kind of start with some of my own kind of experiences when it comes to this whole idea. Let me adjust this microphone. Jeez Louise, this thing. My own kind of experience with this, and how I first informally started kind of discovering some of the ups and downs. When you're a lot younger, usually you're pretty up most times, and you're not worried too much about it. You might have your off days or whatnot, but it doesn't seem to be something that needs to be dissected. Well, when I did get into the adventure world, I found that there were plenty of times where, after these trips, I just would crash. I mean, I could in the beginning chalk it up to actual physical fatigue, the AT, sailing, solo sailing, all that sort of stuff. You get back to port and you're just like, oh, finally I can really rest. But then there was a mental exhaustion as well, and that one usually stayed its course for as long as I would let it. And kind of a mixture of like, oh, well, I'm just not going to do anything, and I'm going to make all the sort of bad choices, i.e. food, drink, no exercise, because now I'm finally back and I'm relieved and all that sort of stuff. And that kind of typically would amplify things, to tell you the truth, and make them worse. But at the root of it was just this unhappiness to my changing circumstance. The adventure's over. What do I do now? All that sort of stuff. Obviously, there was a huge sort of insight gained back in 2022, or in 2020. Sorry. The knockdown in 2022, where everything got damaged, basically came back broken, busted, and feeling like a failure. And that was probably one of the longest bouts of this post-adventure sort of depression and down in the dumps feeling that I think I've ever felt. And probably also the hardest one to reverse that I've ever had to, because I think there was some serious PTSD when it came to the actual experience that I'd gone through with that big knockdown and all that sort of stuff during that storm. But also, in 2020, having, gotten kind of turned around and having to go out into the Atlantic during that busy hurricane season and not being able to stop places because of all the lockdowns and stuff, and feeling like I was stuck out at sea. And again, knowing that if I just return back, I've basically coming back broken, busted, and just not achieving what I had set out yet again to do. And these low points, man, they're something that happen on a small scale in life and also on a grand scale in our adventures. And I've dealt with all of them, and I'm always going to kind of go back towards sailing as my big example, because I think for me in my adult life, those have been the most, just the most, I feel those and I remember those examples the most. But there's also, starting a business and trying to do something on your own and having it sort of come up not being successful over and over again, month in, month out, year after year, and then having something like COVID happen and all this stuff happens, and you're just basically, it's like all roads are pointing to you quitting and going and not continuing to chase after this thing that you're so desperately trying to grab at. And I don't know, we're going to talk about some of those as far as the difference between these sort of long-standing funks where you're like, dude, my whole life is just it's not working, it's not turning into what I want it to be, and I just might as well not get out of bed. And then the other ones, which are just like, today really sucks. It's raining and it squalls and I'm not going in the right direction. And what in the hell am I doing out here? And I'm sunburnt and all these little issues that are a little bit easier to kind of combat and reverse and, step right out of, or step back from, look at, dissect, and be like, okay, I think we can move past this one. I think we could turn our frown upside down. But, also when I think about it, sometimes these same feelings of depression and downtroddenness come from, something as and I only say this because I'm old now, because it hit a whole lot harder back in the day. But even like, breaking up, ending a relationship, and it not necessarily just a romantic one, but maybe a friendship that peters out or anything like that. But yeah, when you get like dumped and you're just like, the image, your friends bust through the locked door and find the shades drawn and nothing but empty like ramen packets and beer cans, and you're just there as like a shell of a human being. Well, that's what we're trying to figure out, how you go from that back to, walking on sunshine and moving forward, motivated, proud, energetic, excited, that sort of thing. Yeah, and think about it. Whenever these bad things in life happen, and we find ourselves in that hole, how do we feel? We feel depressed. Nothing's going our way. The glass is definitely half empty all the time, and it kind of spreads. It's like you feel like that. So even like a sunny day, you're like, it's not that sunny out. Couple of clouds over there, that sort of thing. You're obviously unmotivated. So, and that one's a tricky one, because that's one of the humps that you really have to negotiate, because you kind of have to force yourself to be like, all right, well, let's get back into it. Let's get back in this fight, when all you want to do is just roll over and be like, ugh, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not up for this challenge. I'm not up for the fight. Another one, and this one is definitely a descriptive that I have been taught over the last, 5 years or so by the youngsters, the next generation, and that's the word deflated. Where you're just like, I thought everything was going to go so well, but now I feel like a deflating balloon, and I am just circling the drain, and now I am collapsing on the floor in a shriveled little ball. That's what it means to be deflated. And yeah, the wind is taken out of your sails, quite literally, and you just feel like a lump. You don't have much self-worth. I think when we're all puffed up and we're all full and we got all the air and we're shapely and all that sort of stuff, we're feeling good and we're feeling great. But yeah, when we're a shriveled little ball on the floor, it's definitely not very good. Another sailing analogy for this feeling, this rut that we're in, would be rudderless. And that one really hits home, because it's going to tie into how we actually get out of this. Because, on a boat, if you're rudderless, if you lose your rudder, then it's very difficult to keep a heading. It's very difficult to stay the course, and it's very difficult to point yourself in the right direction and keep going. Now, is it possible? Yes. From a technical standpoint, yeah, absolutely. But that idea of being able to have a rudder and lock in that tiller and straighten your heading and head right towards those things that you want to, that's what we're trying to achieve, and that's what we're going to hopefully dissect and break down. But I think what all of these kind of have in common is just that 3-letter word, sad. I'm feeling sad, not feeling happy, feeling sad, and I'm in a rut, and I want to get out, but I don't know what to do, and I don't feel like doing it because I'm unmotivated, and I'm deflated there on the ground without a rudder. Meh. As my old pal Scott would say, meh. Oh, my My gigantic bag of stuff just rolled off of the settee, but we'll deal with that later. Well, when we feel this way, the question is, how do we reverse? And how do we untangle the mess that we found ourselves in and get back to the opposite of these feelings, which would be, i.e., happy. I'm feeling happy, dude. I'm stoked. I'm loving this. I'm excited. When you are happy, all the other things sort of just start to fall into place, like being motivated. And I think for me, the biggest thing about being motivated is that you're up for the fight. You're up for whatever it takes, whether it's good, bad, or whatever. You're sort of like, all right, let's do this. Let's take this on, because you're motivated, you're confident, you're ready, and you are excited. And when you have excitement, you have energy, and they all kind of work off each other. And I think they all sort of combine and go underneath the umbrella of living a purposeful existence. You know, when you are purposeful, when you know what you're aiming for, when you have these goals that you're trying to kind of go after, you find that automatically a little bit of motivation comes in. Automatically you're a bit excited because you're like, ooh, wow, okay, so what do we have to do to get there? Oh, man, we just got to do those things. Awesome. And I think in that, we end up finding ourselves in a more happy sort of state of mind. And that ultimately, for me, as I get older, again, I'm finding that, you know, I used to say, you know, it's got to be like safety and we want to be confident, But really, in the end, I'm starting to think that the real secret, the real thing that we're all looking for is to just enjoy our time. Try and be happy with it. Whether it's good, bad, or anything, we want the majority of our time spent on this earth to be a happy and joyful existence. Now, before we take a look at different strategies that I've been using in the past and all that sort of stuff that have helped me over and over again get out of these ruts and get back up on the horse, so to speak, we need to make some hard sort of reality check. I don't want to say guidelines, but essentially, and I don't want to say rules. I don't like rules. Maybe just assumptions or things that we need to be aware of going into this sort of methodology so that we're not just caught off guard. And when we're trying to go from unmotivated to motivated, the unmotivated guy wins and be like, oh, I didn't know we had to do that. And the negative guy does that and all that sort of stuff. So first, we're going to have to work. This is not an easy sort of effortless little transition, you know? I mean, when you're trying to change your entire mental sort of state, and you're also probably going to have to dive in a little physical as well, it's going to be work. We're going to sweat it out both mentally and physically. We're going to have to, do a lot of things that are not the easy way. They're not the, oh, geez, I'll just eat all that entire box of cookies that Justin left in the cupboard there last week in San Diego that I did eat all of. But we're going to have to say no to the ice cream, of which I left a little tiny note that said, you almost got me, Cap. Almost. Justin will get that one. So it's going to be work. It's going to be work. So you got to be ready for it. You got to kind of think, okay, you know what? I want to get out of this because obviously the goal is to reverse course. Well, it ain't going to be easy. And as long as you know it's not going to be easy, at least then you're aware of it. You're not caught off guard, and those little triggers in your brain aren't going to be like, oh, okay, well, sweet. This wasn't what I expected. Expect it. Know it. Realize it. And you almost want to get hungry for it. Like the harder you work, the faster and the better this transition is going to be. Second, we will need to commit, okay, to time frames and be diligent and disciplined, if only for a short while. And this, I promise you, this is always a recurring theme. If you're back at bitter end, anywhere between 2010 and 2015 and you joined one of my aerobics classes, like so many, or, well, so few of you did, you will always remember me saying, all right, guys, I guarantee you this is only going to be 30 minutes, not a minute longer. So if you could just sustain yourself through that, grunt through it, you will be so glad you did. Well, it's the same here. We're going to set kind of perimeters, if you will. And that's going to help when we're kind of really struggling. We can sort of say, well, all we got to do is persevere for, 2 more weeks or 10 more days or 5 more days, i.e. the goal typically I find for any of this sort of stuff, whether it's, working out, mentally, physically, all that sort of stuff, you got to at least give it minimum 10 days. 10's a nice number. You go from double digits to single digits after the first 24 hours. What can be better than that? You're already making progress. That's just a little trick. But yeah, 10 days to 2 weeks. That's what we're committing to. And then you reassess at the end, okay? But during that time, just those 2 weeks, I don't care what you do afterwards, but for those 2 weeks, you got to sort of be like, all right, you know what? All the temptress things, all the cookies, all the other bad stuff, all the laziness, all the social media scrolling, all the things that we're going to talk about here coming up in this podcast, those are going to be things that you keep in check and you do not bend on. You say, you know what, we're going to make the right, we're going to make the wise, and we're going to make the healthy choices. And if we do that, just for this little bit of time, by the time you get to the end of that 10 days or 2 weeks, the strength, motivation, and excitement that you are going to have is going to help you carry you well past the I misspelled Mark's name. It's going to carry you well past into the next iteration of this, whatever that might be. A tamed back, throttled back version, or a continuance, or an amped up version of what you just did. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Or you're just going to be like, man, that was the biggest waste of 2 weeks of my life. Thanks, Jerome. Appreciate it. I am unsubscribing, which hopefully does not happen. But yeah, definitely going to have to be diligent and most of all, be disciplined. Don't bend. Third is realize that this is going to take both physical and mental toughness. All right. Now I'm not pressing everybody to join some crazy fitness club and do 2 hours of, sweaty exercise every single day. But I might say, hey, instead of doing this, let's go for a walk out in nature, or let's go do this or this or this. Let's try and make some better choices with our time use that are going to help us, mentally. It's kind of that idea of the minute you start taking your body, taking care of yourself and your physical being a little bit better, it's just going to directly relate to your mental happiness. And that's what I'm playing on there because, honestly, it's always worked for me. We'll get into it. And then our perspective on the past, present, and future. Our perspective on the past, present, and future needs to be clear, okay? And essentially, that's one of those things where we want to know and we have to be honest with ourselves why we got into the mess, why we have stayed in the mess, why we're sitting in it, why we're deflated on the floor, and why we actually want to get out of it. Because we want to be happy. We want to be excited. We want to be doing the things that we want to do. We want to feel good when we wake up instead of having to chalk down 16 ounces of espresso so that we just, at least have the energy to try and do something even though we're miserable doing it. That's sort of the thinking. And if we have a clear look at and an unbiased and unego-related look at all of those aspects, that's going to help. And I think, being honest with ourselves during this whole process is going to be a crucial sort of step towards success. Okay. Now, side note, nobody's perfect. We're going to falter. We're going to fail. We're going to screw up. We always do. I always do. There are going to be times of weakness that we just can't seemingly figure out how to overcome. Now, I'm not just giving you a hall pass here to just do whatever. But what I am saying is that if you do find yourself in that situation, realize that it's okay. You can start from scratch right then and there and kind of start it over and take a mulligan. But realize as the only punishment that's really going to be played out is a delay in reaching the goal that you are trying to reach. You're just going to delay it. That's all it really is. All right, hold on. We got to pause here for a second. Sorry about that. Skip's texted me with demands, something about checking nav lights. I don't know what's so important about that. Just kidding. Systems checks. We're doing all of that today. Sorry about the interruption. But yeah, nobody's perfect. It's fine. We're just, we're going to do our best. But do know, and, you got to have that reality check of like, okay, well, if I do lay down and I watch a big old depressing, sad movie instead of going for a walk or reading a book or something like that, it's going to delay me climbing out of this hole and getting, to that stasis, that mental sort of area of happiness that I'm actually looking to get to. So there are, while there's not, somebody standing over you writing off a ticket, it's a self-imposed. It's one of those sort of punishments, which are kind of the worst ones because you have to live with it. It's something that is fact, and you can't get out with it. So I'd like to start with the fourth one, as it will, I think, make a clear case to be sort of the bedrock when we question ourselves and when we say like, why am I doing this? Like, why did we start this? Why did we listen to Jerome in this Sailing into Oblivion podcast thing? Why do this? Well, our perspective when we have a clear sense of how we ended up here, where we are right now, and we're not fooling ourselves like, well, maybe I'm not that unhappy. I've only, slept for 18 hours today. We actually have that clear and very honest criticism. I don't want to say criticism, but honest. We just see it. We're going to be very honest with ourselves, where we are, how we feel, and all that. And it's basically, it's going to train us to get into the right sort of mindset. And looking back is always good. Looking back at the past is always good for lessons learned. How to avoid possibly winding up in that same situation in the future. And how and always realizing and knowing that is over. It's in the past. Like, as much as we'd like to dwell on it, it's not going to do us any favors. So learn the lessons, figure out how we don't wind up in that same situation and correct that for the future, and then realize that, it's over. Let's move on from it, and let's go and get into the here and now. And looking forward, we really want to see and make sure we're shaping our end goal, what we're trying to do. We're trying to be happy again. We're trying to be excited, motivated, trying to be healthy, all that sort of stuff. But not only do we want the end goal of like picturing this person that we would like to be, but we also need to have little short-term goals of, I want to get a little bit more of a healthy daily routine. Instead of waking up and scrolling through Instagram and drinking, coffee and smoking cigarettes, let's go ahead and maybe get up, turn on some music, and go for a walk. These are the good choices. Or I'm going to go for a run. Or I'm going to get up and just stretch. Or I'm just going to get up and I'm going to sit. And I'm going to drink some warm water with a squeeze of lemon in it to prevent kidney stones. There's a million little things out there that we can do that are the right sort of choices that in the here and now are actually going to help us. But it's those short-term goals of like, okay, well, you know what? For today and tomorrow, I'm going to go and do this and this. We're just going to do it in these 2 days. We'll see how we feel, and maybe we continue, maybe we don't. We got our long-term goal of what we're going to try and do, what person we'd like to be, and then we're going to make our short-term goals and try and just tick those suckers off one after another after another. And, you know, benefits, and I think looking forward, benefits a good comparison, benefits and a comparison to the past. So when we look forward, we can sort of draw on, okay, so we want to be this person. We're looking to be happy and awesome and all this stuff, as opposed to who? And then you look towards the past and you're like, okay, the guy I was yesterday when I finally did decide I need to listen to Jerome because it's such a miserable place to be in. So that's another benefit of looking forward. But most importantly is the here and now. And that is being able to honestly answer for yourself, and there's no answer I can give you for this, but answering for yourself, why are we doing this? You know, for me personally, a lot of times when I am snapping out of a post-adventure depression or trying to, it's one of the first things I look in the mirror, look in my eyes, I look at my body, I look at everything, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, what have I done? What have I been doing for the last 2 months to myself and my mind and everything? It's time to change. Why? And that's my, and I look at it and I try and remember that moment as best as I possibly can to just be like, dude, this is not you. This is just what happens when sometimes we fall apart and we don't get up quite fast enough and an extended period of time goes by. And then we ask ourselves, is it worth it? Is it worth it to put in the effort here and now to make a change and switch from the person we are to the person we would like to be? And again, this is not something I can answer for anybody, but I know in my own experience, I'm definitely, there's like a critical mass moment that I hit where I'm just like, dude, this is all the work in the world is going to be worth it because I'm not happy anymore waking up being the person that I have let myself become. And it's harsh. It's a harsh thing to say to yourself. But again, we need to be honest. And then also, I think on those same notes, we're going to need to trust in the plan that we do come up with. We got to trust that the choice is to stay the course for 10 days, to make the smarter, healthier, more mentally engaging choices in our daily lives and abstain from the things that we know aren't great for us. You know, that's part of the plan, and we got to trust that this plan is going to work, and that if we do stay focused and we stay consistent and disciplined all through these 10 days, 2 weeks, we're going to basically feel and be in that place that we are trying to get to. So it's definitely well worth it. And also, you know, if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, like, holy cow, I don't know if this is starting to sound complicated. Just remember, it's temporary. We're only asking you 10 days, 2 weeks. That's it. That's all. The starter pack. You know, you get through that and you're going to be such a different person that the idea of trying to do all this stuff, it's not so bad. It's not so overwhelming as, you know, I would find it to be when I wake up, you know, in my bunk 2 months after a trip has gone south and I'm like, meh, you know, really literally making that noise as my like wake up call to the world. It's not all that great. Okay. So going forward from that. Okay. So that's our bedrock. We know why we're doing it. We know what we're looking at. We're dissecting. We're being honest with everything. So now we go to the work. What it's going to take. What are the steps? What are the examples of things? And it's not always, this is just examples. These are a few things that might resonate, that might be like, oh, I'll try that. Or, you know, I'll try a variation of that. You know, obviously, I don't have all the answers, but these are the things, again, that have worked for me. But the actual work, the choices, all of this stuff that we got to do on a daily basis to try and get ourselves back to that place that we want to be. Okay? And these are going to sound kind of stupid. They're going to sound a little hokey, like some motivator guy or whatever. on some stupid Instagram reel. Well, unfortunately, some of the stuff every once in a while is pretty basic, but it also does kind of ring true. Okay, good food, number one. Try and cut out all the crap, all the sugar, all the stuff that's going to make your emotions and everything, your blood sugar and all this stuff go crazy. Well, maybe throttle way the heck down on it. Make the good choices. Do your body right. Eat the veg, all that sort of stuff. All the good. We all know what's good for us, and we know what's not good for us. And we know that most of the stuff that's good for us doesn't taste like the stuff that is not good for us, but that is not the issue. And again, we're only doing this for a little while, so we're going to try it out and hope it's going to continue. But yeah, start out with some decent food, all right? That's going to be a huge, both physical and mental boost. It may take a little while before you notice it, but I guarantee you're going to notice it. Fitness, walk, run, work out, anything, nature. I think taking a walk and breathing deep in the woods, surrounded by trees, things like that, on a path, on a trail, something super easy, you may not even break a sweat, that's still definitely part of fitness. We got to do a little bit of that every single day. The strenuousness, if that's a word, is up to you and what you're comfortable with. Obviously, don't go hurt and kill yourself out there by trying to run a 10K after not running for 10, years or something like that. We want to suit our fitness levels. And what you're going to find, like you always find with fitness, and it's super obvious, is that you start out with day one doing one thing, and then you're pretty much able to add a little more and a little more. Because why? Well, we're growing stronger because we're becoming fitter and all that sort of stuff. So we want to have a little bit of that every single day. And on our own schedule, you make up your own. Entertainment. This is screens versus nature. Screens, obviously, we all know are not the greatest thing for our mental state. Scrolling, social media, seeing everybody living their great lives, all that sort of stuff. It's not the best. Watching crazy, violent movies. Any of these things, they put us into kind of a strange mental state. So we're going to cut that down a little bit. We're going to try and introduce things like nature, things like reading, things like meditating, sitting, thinking, talking, chatting, anything else than being alone staring at a screen on a telephone inside of your hand. Now, if you do still have to get your TV time in, my recommendation there would be that anything you do watch better be some motivating story that kind of makes you feel like, boy, you know what? I think I could do something like that. My favorite, my pick, oh man, just plug in that famous Mark Wahlberg vehicle Invincible, where he's Vince Papale on the old Philadelphia Eagles. I love that movie. I feel so powered up whenever I watch it. And I find that if I want nothing more than to watch a movie during a period like this, as long as I'm watching the right ones, they're actually going to help and not hinder. So consider that one. Sleep. This is a big one. Sleep is the key. Sleep is definitely a key. And this is early to bed, early to rise. So you might be one of those people that's like, oh, dude, I just, I'm not tired. I like to stay up super late, and I like to sleep in and all that sort of stuff. Well, here's the thing. When you wake up super early and the rest of the planet Earth is still asleep, it's a quiet time. It's a reflective time. It's a time where you can take a walk, and there's no distractions. And there's, if you're trying to do something for, say, 10 to 14 days, and you've got these goals and there's no distractions, there's really, it's a great time to be not only alive but awake. And so, if it's one of those things where, oh man, I stay up really late and so I have to sleep in really late. Well, here's the thing. Day one, just wake up really early. Don't take a nap. By the time night comes, you're going to be pretty darn tired. And then you'll get to bed a little bit earlier, a little more reasonable time. Remember, most people are making kind of the bad choices later on in the nights. And when you go to bed early and you wake up early, refreshed and ready to go, that is a key, absolute key. And then the last one is communication. This is a key here. This is a big one. communicating not only with sort of the people around you, but we don't want to be an island out here trying to do this thing. We want to talk to people, maybe even tell them what you're doing. Who knows? Maybe not. I don't know. But you want to definitely be communicating with people each and every day. If nobody's around you, pick up the phone, call an old friend just for a quick chat. Reaching out and talking with people and networking and all that sort of stuff is super crucial, I think, for a happy existence. You know, when we're all alone and it seems like us against the world, that's not kind of the mindset. We want to kind of feel like we're growing towards becoming more of sort of, I mean, obviously, this is coming from a solo sailor, somebody who spent months and months by himself out on an ocean. And as much as I enjoy and value that, I do know that there is a happiness to be found in friendships and relationships and keeping those up. And it doesn't feel all that great when we think of good friends that have gone by the wayside for no other reason than, you know, communication just dwindled. So those are the types of times and people and relationships that, hey, you know what? I'm on this little journey, 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that. Why don't I just give a shout out once a day? I'll call somebody else I haven't talked to in a while, see how they're doing. Who knows? They might be in a funk, and then you can share this podcast with them. Unbelievable. All of this basically, again, is wraps up in you sitting down with a few of these ideas, bouncing around your head, and then coming up with your own game plan, what you're going to do each day, kind of how you're going to do it. I always suggest pen and paper, write it all down, make your list, make your little time slots. I mean, get into it. Enjoy it. Think of it as like the rebirth, as your guidebook, something you can look at and be like, I'm going to check that off today. Specific goals for each day are absolutely key because they're going to take away the gray areas. Now, the best example for this, the one that makes the most sense is it's coming up on beach season. And you're like, boy, sure would like to get in shape. I could use to lose 10. I could use to lose some weight. Now, if that's your goal, to lose some weight, it's a bit wishy-washy. How much are you going to lose? How much can you cheat? All that sort of stuff. Make a specific goal for each one of these. I am going to take a walk out in nature every day for 15 minutes. Boom, set a timer. I would like to read 5 chapters in a book every single night before I go to bed. That's a goal. I got to do that. I want to lose 15 pounds. Okay, I got to lose 15 pounds. Should I cheat and eat that whole box of cookies? It's going to make it a whole lot longer to lose that 15 pounds now, isn't it? When you make the goals very specific, that really, really helps to just fight against that little part in your brain that's like, dude, cheat. Boy, wouldn't it be great? You could just lay there, do what you want to do. Isn't that what you want to do? No, it's not, because what we want to do is find ourselves back in that happy, positive, excited state. All right? And then, you know, kind of keep this in mind. And a lot of this with the whole goal setting and making a list and coming up with this plan is to challenge ourselves, because when we have a challenge that we're trying to undertake, we are living a purposeful existence. We've got our set end goals we're going for. We've got our short-term goals that we have to take care of every single day. So therefore, when we wake up, we actually get out of bed knowing that we have a purpose that that we're going for. We are no longer rudderless. We have our heading. We know what we need to do to get our sails up and to keep on moving in that direction. So we better get up and get on it. And that is one of the best sort of, I think, and I have found, motivating forces is that, yeah, I got that goal and I want to reach that goal, and it's not going to take all that darn long if I just keep going at it. So instead of doing what I would more likely do and just, roll over and go back to sleep, I'm going to get after it today. That's the key. That is just absolutely the key. Now, from my own sort of personal experience, one of the first and most obvious situations was when I found myself in Belhaven back in like 2020 or 2021 after a disaster trip again. Broke the boat, didn't achieve the goals that I wanted to, and I got back there, and I'd been out at sea for like 88 days or something like that. So I'm just happy to be back on land. The pizzas, the beers, all the stuff is just flying. I don't care. I'm not exercising. I'm not doing anything, and this just went on, and I kept saying in the back of my head, like, dude, nah, I'm gonna just a couple more days. We'll get through this weekend. I'm gonna do whatever I want. Problem is I was essentially digging myself deeper and deeper into this hole, getting a little more unhealthy physically, and definitely far less excited and happy mentally, because I was just chasing after all these dopamine hits and just this pleasure, because I had been deprived of it for so long. And I'm not going to deal with these feelings of failure and all this sort of stuff, because I'm just too happy eating this pizza and drinking this beer. And this went on for like 2 months until, like I said, I had my mirror moment where I'm staring in the mirror and I'm looking at myself and I'm like, oh my gosh, what have you done? Do you see what you have done? And then you snap out of it and you're like, well, let's get this going. And that was, I think, the first time I ever really started to try and focus in on what's the best way to turn this bus around. How do I turn this frown upside down, so to speak? And then obviously, in other aspects, it's not, like I said, always sailing, but at the end of 2023, after essentially 2.5 years of just seriously struggling, trying to figure out from like a business standpoint what the heck I'm going to do. We all were in a pretty tough little patch there. Obviously, those of us who were deriving our income from public speaking events were completely barred from our own occupations and everything. And I'm trying desperately not to have to sell Sparrow, just really doing whatever I can to make ends meet and living kind of an existence that I did not expect to have to be dealing with. And by the end of that year, I was just a wreck. And I was alone. I was in northern Michigan, and I didn't want to reach out to people because I was so miserable, and I didn't see any brightness. I didn't see anything going on in the future. And I don't know. I still can only point to one thing that sort of snapped me into action, and that was an email for a possible speaking engagement that would happen, 3-4 months from then. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, dude, holy cow, we might still have a chance. And then again, right to the mirror moment where I was like, oh my gosh, look at yourself. What the hell are you doing? You got to get your shit together, man. Look at you. Put it all down. Reassess. Let's do what we did back in like 2020 in Buford. Let's get into action and see if we can shape ourselves into the kind of person who deserves to be on that stage in 3 months from now. And again, I repeated the process at that point, and it really, really helped. Long story short, get to those things, and I'm able to perform, even though I had not in very, very long time. But that also sort of catapulted me into a whole different framework of thinking about all of these speaking engagements, trying to do the corporate stuff, sort of long story short, it was also, it just propelled me into this positive mind state that all of a sudden other opportunities started peeling off, because now all of a sudden I'm up, I'm excited, I'm doing stuff, I'm moving and I'm shaking. I'm not in my dark little hole by myself. So that one was definitely end of 2023 was rough. Jeez. But we're not there anymore. That's the past. The past is past, and I've learned those lessons, and I'm letting them go, just like we talked about a little bit earlier. Okay. Now we're on to the sort of final part, which essentially wraps together sort of the second step and the third step. So again, the first one is that we have to know that we are going to have to get in and do the work and put in the effort. We're going to really sort of keep our perspective on how this is going and why we're doing it, and that's going to help us combat all those times we're going to doubt things. But probably one of the most difficult is sticking to this plan and the grind that it is going to take every day to do this for our 10 days, 2 weeks that we plan on carrying and following all these steps in this plan that we've created for ourselves in these short-term goals to then reach our long-term goal. So when we want to quit and we want to cheat and we want to falter, there's a few things that we got to think about. Number one is we want to remember where we were. We want to be like, am I that person? Am I that person? Are we going to ask ourselves that? And it's going to basically, you can say, no, I'm not that person. I don't want to be that person. I want to move forward and be happier and not deflated on the floor over there in a wrinkled pile. So we got to remember and think about that. We need to project to where we want to be and where we are going to be at the end of this time period. Picture it. And picture not only where we're going to be if we carry on through and grind it out, but also where we're going to be in 2 weeks if we decide we want to quit. Well, easy. You go back to step one. Remember where we were, because that's exactly where you're going to be if you quit. Right back where you were. Blind trust the plan. Just trust it. Just go with it. Don't question it. Don't think, oh, man, this is really hard and I don't like it and I'm not feeling up for it today. Just trust it. Be like, okay, I don't care if I don't feel up to it today. I'm still going to do it. We'll get through it today and then we'll see about tomorrow. Trust it. Just trust it. Don't worry about it. Don't question it. Each day we will get better. Okay? We're going to get stronger. We're going to get more positive. We're going to get more energy. When I was in the Southern Ocean, when I was headed to, the Southern Ocean in that trip around the world, one of the biggest troubles that I had was the anxiety and the fear of what was going to happen when I hit the Southern Ocean. Now, even though I was in the Atlantic and the weather was fine, and I had sailed there many times before, all I could think about was what was coming down the pipe. All right? Now, once I sort of shrunk my focus down, and I was able to just focus on each day or each ocean and get through that, what I didn't realize was going to be also a sort of pivotal thing was the fact that if I kept doing that, which was helping me to ease the anxiety of what was to come, that each day I'm gaining more experiences. I'm getting better as a sailor. I'm getting stronger. I'm getting more efficient. So that after those 2 months went by in the North and South Atlantic and I finally did reach the Southern Ocean, I was a way, way better sailor, way more confident sailor than I was when I first started out. So each day that we're on this little journey to try and revamp our lives in these 10 days, day one, we're going to feel like crap. Day 4, we're going to feel pretty darn decent. And day 7, we're going to be like, dude, I feel great. This is awesome. Jerome is the man. And day 10, we're going to say, you know what? I know we were only going to do this for 10 days, but let's do it for another 10. And then we're going to continue on and on and on like that because we get stronger. We get more positive. We get more energy as we build it. It's not ever going to be just a snap of the fingers, flip of the switch. It's going to take that time. It's going to take the work. It's going to take the effort. And I guarantee that if you stick to that plan and you stay focused and you work with some of these ideas and these thoughts and come up with these plans, man, oh man, if you just grind it out, the results are just going to absolutely amaze you. Now, to wrap this up, because I know it's been going on and you must be absolutely sick of it, but this has worked for me over and over. Because every time I go on one of these adventures, I come back and I end up in a rut. It's just something that happens. I accept it. I know it's going to happen. I know how to mitigate it a whole lot better now than I used to. And so it doesn't hit me out of the blue anymore. And if it does hit me, I know exactly the steps I'm going to take to get out of it. But it has helped me. And maybe it might help you the next time you find yourself in such a rush or such a rut. And that's all I'm really trying to do, share an experience, really. And really, I guess, I don't know who said this quote, but It was in some movie, I'm sure of it, or maybe a book that I read. But basically, character is not based on how we fall or why we fell, but on how we get back up. And I think there's really some serious truth to that. Because, everybody's making mistakes. Everybody fails. Everybody falters and just does the worst thing. And then you end up down in this deep, dark hole. It's fine. It happens. We move on from it. We learn from those mistakes. And that's all they are, is they're mistakes. Yeah, we screwed up. Everybody screws up. But it's how we get back up. And the energy we put into that and the work and the effort, that is truly what character is. It's doing the thing that we know is right. They know is the hard road. No, it's not the easy way out, but we do it anyway, and we do it for purpose, and we do it to be better people in the end. The choice is up to you. I hope, like I said, if you took one thing out of this, then I've succeeded. And yeah, we'll just kind of see. We're going to let that soak in. Maybe this is one of those podcasts where if you do think about it and a couple of days from now, you're kind of like, maybe that guy was right. Well, then maybe re-listen to it and then take notes. I don't really know, because there was a lot of info in there. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I got a lot of great emails from people talking about the, Take On 2025 podcast. And I figured, these are pretty cool. I enjoy doing this because I enjoy dissecting this sort of stuff and trying to work with it. And, maybe if you got stuff that has worked for you in the past as well, you might want to share it with me via email. So who knows? We're out of here to Bermuda tomorrow, and hopefully enjoyed this podcast. And again, thank you all so much for listening. Thanks for choosing this podcast. Thanks for sharing it out. And thank you for your continued support. Till next time.